Welcome to the BDX BatchMATIC training series. In this video, we are going to go over setting up batch zones, configuring events, and scheduling batches. Let's go to our Fertigation tab. On the Fertigation tab, we have our Batch Schedule tab. The Batch Schedule tab shows us all of the events that are currently allowed to run on the machine today. These events are created and configured in the batch zones. Let's open our Batch Zones tab and take a look. In the Batch Zones tab, we'll have tiles for each of our different zone valves that the machine services. As we discussed in our introduction video, if we have more than 6 valves on the machine, we will see more zone tiles in this view. So when setting up the machine, we're going to have to configure each of the different zones that we're using. Let's open up our first zone. When we open up one of the tiles from the Batch Zone view, we get the Batch Zone Manager. At the top of the Batch Zone Manager, we have some options including enabling or pausing the zone, and we can also set the day number that this zone is currently on. If we have tank sensors, we'll see the status of the tank level. We'll also see the last batch, how many batches ran today, and what the volume was today. We can start by setting the name for the batch zone by clicking the heading at the top. We can also access this on the Zone Properties tab. On the event schedule, we can see that there are no events currently set up. We'll want to start by creating a new event for this zone valve. A new event will appear in the event schedule. Let's click on it to open up the event editor. In the event editor, we'll be able to see that we have options to set an event name, a mode for it to operate in. We can then select a recipe and set a volume for it to make. Let's set a name first. Next, we need to decide how we want to schedule out this event. Do we want it to be operated by a sensor? So when the low-level sensor gets activated, we trigger this event? Or do we want to operate it based on a time of day? For this example, we'll set it up for time of day. Next, we need to select which recipe we want to run. Then, we need to tell the system how much we want to make. If we're making a flush batch, we can opt to send it to the drain valve. Otherwise, when the batch is complete, it'll be sent to the zone valve for the room, which is valve 1 in this case. On the event schedule, we can set the time that we want this to start. If we want the event to run only during specific days of the week, we can select those here. Otherwise, we can leave it set to all days. For date range, we can leave any range, or we can set a specific range for this event to be allowed to operate in. If we want to run by specific days, for example, if we want this event to be run during the first week of our cycle, we can set it to run from day 1 to day 7. Alternatively, we can also set specific calendar dates for this event to be scheduled through. Once we've decided how we want to set up this event, we can press Save. Once we've saved a valid event, we have the option to run it now. If we want, we can press Run Now and send this event to the top or the bottom of the job queue. If we send it to the top of the job queue, it'll be executed next. If we send it to the bottom of the job queue, it'll be executed after any other jobs in the queue are completed. Closing out of the event editor, we will now see our event in the event schedule. We'll notice that the shade has changed to a lighter color. We can see that our time has been set, and since it is past that time of day, the job has been queued up and is now pending. If we exit out of our Batch Zone Manager for a moment and head back to our batch schedule, we can see that it is now in the batch schedule with a status of pending. If we open up the job queue, we will see that it is now the next job to be processed. Currently, there is another event that is being completed on the machine, so that one will be next. We can see now that our job has started. Taking a look back through the Batch Zone tab, we can see that Batch Zone 1 is now highlighted, and the status shows that the mixing tank is being filled. If we open up the tile, we'll see that the status is also shown here as filling, and it's highlighted green to show that it's the current job that's running. Now let's create another event, and in this case we'll demonstrate a triggered event. We'll select triggered for the mode, and whichever recipe we want to run, and the quantity or the volume that we want to make. If we want, again, we can select that this only goes for a certain day range. So let's make this for the second week. And we can save our event. If we close out of here, we'll see that it's in our event schedule, but it is in a dark color, indicating that it is not currently an active event. It is outside of the dates scheduled. We can also see that there is no time in the column here, and instead just an icon indicating that this is a triggered event. Exiting out of the Batch Zone Manager and going back to the batch schedule, we can see that our trigger event is not currently in the batch schedule because it is not within the day range for that batch zone. Let's change the day range so that we can see what happens. We can see that the color has changed to a lighter shade. This indicates that it is now within range and able to be triggered. Closing out of here and returning to the batch scheduler, we can see that it has also been added to the batch schedule. Let's return to our batch zones and take a look at how that event would get triggered. The event gets triggered based on the settings in the Zone Properties tab. We have to specify a low-level sensor. Without the low-level sensor, a trigger event will never be activated. Low-level sensors can be connected either to one of the two inputs available inside the BDX controller or to one of two external input modules, which each contain 8 individual inputs. When a sensor is connected to an input, we must configure it in the Batch Zone Manager here and select which input the sensor is connected to. Once we've done that, anytime the sensor gets activated from a low water condition, it will then operate any events that are currently active in our schedule for triggers. This means we could have several events that get triggered when the low-level sensor gets activated. This may be necessary if you have a small mixing tank and several batches are required to refill your batch tanks, or it may be necessary if you want to run a flush batch after you have finished your primary batch. In that case, the order of the events does matter, and we can sort the order of the events by selecting the move icon and then dragging them in the list to reorder them. This concludes the video on events and configuring the batch zones. See the rest of our videos for more information on how to configure and run your BDX BatchMATIC system.